Let's get to your thoughts on what's going on in Chicago, and then again, and we're talking with Glenn Antizzo. Glenn is the associate professor, or professor. I'm sorry. This associate won't wipe off here. I'm going to have a official memo. Professor, Political Science, Mississippi College. But seriously, when you start looking at what's going to happen and what's happening now, and then we also mentioned about people. It's kind of a sneak attack, but it's bad in New Orleans.
Yeah. No, I went to grad school at LSU, and so I have a fond affection for the city of New Orleans. I think it is one of the most unique, beautiful, and fun places that I've ever been to in my life. But, to walk through, the French Quarter, especially in the evening, and to have to worry about, that you are taking your life into your hands and the safety of your family if you're down there with them, something that really takes away from the enjoyment that I used to have when I was going down there in the 1980s and 90s.
And you think about it because they rely so much on people coming in on tourism. Yeah. Even more so than I would say people like San Francisco with all the homeless and everything else. But as far as just the business sector, it is not New York City. It's not Times Square. They rely heavily on people coming in, having a good time, and doing it out of doors for the most part.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. And, they do promote it, at least during the day, as a place where you can bring the family for a fun time, a good meal, going to the aquarium or going to the World War II Museum. And, of course, at night, especially on a weekend like they had 2 weeks ago when you have a big football game in the Dome, LSU played Florida State. Obviously you're bringing in a lot of people, and that makes it a high, target environment for criminal activity. And it's a shame. And you're right. In Chicago, it is unbelievable, the level of violence that's taking place there. And the city cannot seem to get it under control. You've got, Lori Lightfoot talking about how, the city needs to fight off the crime, but then doesn't give the city any tools.
Professor, how big a part does this play as far as the DAs are concerned? Because when we start looking at it, I had the story, and I think I discarded it, but I'll see if I can find it. When you start looking at some of the things that this DA has done in the New Orleans area, putting people back on the streets, it's a major part, that in the court system, of what's going on.
Yeah, I can speak a little bit to this also because of where I'm from originally. I'm from the greater New York City area. I grew up in Nassau County, right outside of New York City. And, you've got criminals now knowing that they've basically got a license to walk. There was some guy that got picked up for shoplifting in Manhattan who was released for the 63rd time. And I think went out and shoplifted a couple of hours after his release. It's just absolutely crazy. I don't see how this is a sustainable situation.
So we know how to fix this, and we do it through the ballot box, but we're not doing it. We're putting these people back in there. They're killing family members in the slums and in the dangerous parts of town. So how do you change that?
Again, the only way it can be changed is if the people who live in the cities are faced with a critical mass of chaos and mayhem that they finally change their mind. But having the word Democrat behind your name on a ballot seems to cover a multitude of sins in these cities, and that's a problem.
The surging murder rate continues to be a troubling trend in the city of New Orleans. Number has continued to climb 2021, reaching 218, an 83% increase over 2019. City's troubling murder rate comes at the same time as progressive prosecutor Jason Williams took over as district attorney for New Orleans in 2021 under tax fraud investigation himself. Williams promised a more selective approach to prosecutions that goes, and I quote, beyond punishment, end quote. Being more selective about prosecutions will allow us to focus on the crimes that matter most to us. We've got to go beyond punishment and invest in our community. It sounds great. The guy knows how to talk, and I'm sure he's gotten some money from Soros to get in that position.
Well, I'll say this also, Paul. I mean, the one person who doesn't have to worry about her personal security in New Orleans is LaToya Jackson.
True.
I'm LaToya Jackson, excuse me, not LaToya Cantrell, rather. And that is, she's got her own personal security detail that she, I don't know if you saw the story last week, but she owes the city about $32,000, I believe it is. $320,000 for herself flying first class with her security detail back in the plane. I guess no security problem over there in economy.
But she says it's because she's black and a black woman is having problems on the plane. I'm not sure if the rest of the people in coach.
Well, here's the problem for her. There are plenty of black men and black women and white men and white women and Asian men and Asian women in New Orleans who also have problems, largely because she and the city government aren't really doing what they should to try to protect them. And let me just say this about New Orleans, from my having lived down in that area. There is something that New Orleans has done, and these might be the only safe places in the city if they're still doing this. Mm-hmm. They did about 20 years ago set up a tax where districts of the city could tax themselves a little bit extra to get extra police protection, which is why districts such as Lakefront over by the University of New Orleans and the Garden District are safer than, say, for example, the French Quarter or Treme or the Lower Ninth Ward. Because they've got the police.
I had that story last week or a couple of weeks ago in San Francisco. I think they're doing the same thing. They've just abdicated any hope that the city's going to do their. So they're going like neighborhood funds or HOAs and saying, would you put some money in to hire our own police? And I thought, above and beyond the taxes that these people pay already, that's organized vigilante committee, first of all, but that's the only way they can protect themselves. And you have the President of the United States of America and Democrats in the House and Senate who are basically saying, here's what we want to do to your nation. We want to do the same thing because our template is the same thing. Our goals are the same thing. Our platform is the same thing as the mayor and the governors of these Democrat states. It's the same thing as the mayor of New York, same thing as the mayor of Detroit and Jackson, Mississippi. We want to turn your country into these major Democrat cities. And that ought to be scary to anybody. The president could not understand his unfavorability ratings, but he did find a blame for it yesterday on the network.
Your approval rating in the country is well below 50%, and I wonder why you think that is.
This is a really difficult time. We're at an inflection point in the history of this country. We're going to make decisions, and we're making decisions now that are going to determine what we're going to look like the next 10 years from now. I think you'd agree that the impact on the psyche of the American people as a consequence of the pandemic is profound. Think of how that has changed everything. The people's attitudes about themselves, their families, about the state of the nation, about the state of their communities. And so there's a lot of uncertainty out there, a great deal of uncertainty.
So I guess this is it's called Uptown Funk or something. I mean, this is a byproduct of COVID. Maybe not the shot. The shot is apparently causing some irregular heartbeats, but this must be the heart pains from COVID because of what he blames us on. Your final thoughts, sir?
The president is just relying on pretty much rallying support for the Democrats by talking about Trump and talking about other issues that do not impact people directly. I got to just feeling in my heart that you're going to find that the elections are going to be a little bit of a surprise. I think the Republicans are going to take the House because people are starting